Alright guys, time for my final, probably not my final, but my thoughts. This is too loud, I can't tell. Final thoughts about Guilty Gear Strive, this beta. Whatever, because people are asking, would you actually play this game? And honestly, I wouldn't. Not as it is right now, I would not play this game. I would say though, I think this game is so rough in its current form, which again is ridiculous because this game is a year and a half old, and you know what I mean. Give me a break. What were they doing for a year and a half, right? But I would say this game is so rough right now with how it is. It's almost like, I would almost question if they purposely gave us a kind of a shitty version just so the final version could come out in a month or whatever it is and it's better, because it's actually almost, it's very bizarre to me, like how rough this game is. It needs a good polish for sure, dude. Like when the final version comes out of the game, assuming it gets a polish, whatever, I would humor looking into it again, and maybe I would play it. But as it is now, I would not play this version of the game. No, it's quite boring to me. It's very rough around the edges in every way. Like not even just the fundamental flaws, but in terms of just the game being fun. You know, I feel like the game feels very pre-planned. I've talked about I feel like the scope of the game is like, I feel like I'm one of the only people who has not totally complained about the interface, although I do think it looks kind of like a tramp stamp kind of thing. But the whole counter hit stuff doesn't necessarily bother me, even during the very first showings of the game per se. But I do feel the scope and depth of the game looks a little off, and especially when you're playing, the game doesn't actually feel that good. Like I feel like however big the characters are right here is how big the character should be when you're zoomed in. Like I don't mind a game being, you know, having zoom in and zoom out features, but the scope and depth of this game doesn't actually feel right. And I've said before, sometimes a game it needs to feel good. That's why I like Mugen games, and it's really weird. You know, you would think that a fighting game should be one of the easiest things to make because, you know, man, there's people that they're making their own Mega Man games, Sonic games. I mean, they got to make everything almost from scratch. But a fighting game is really just, you know, a background, some music, and some characters. It shouldn't be that hard, but it really just goes to show you how important the feel is in a game, because what Mugen game even feels good? It's like it doesn't matter how the knockback on things, it doesn't feel good, and it doesn't feel fun to play. And because this game is very pre-contrived and predetermined, it doesn't really feel that good really to play right now, I don't think. You know, I almost think it feels like, and again, this is like, you know, there'll be some hater that tries to twist what I say. I actually enjoy the game less than I thought I would. And that's coming from someone, again, I only do combos because I can do them. I only predict all these games, call exactly how they're going to work because I can do it. I would much rather just play the game. I like simple quotation marks games, you know what I mean? Not necessarily that I think Street Fighter is more simple than Guilty Gear, because every game has its own good and bads. This is complicated in this game is more complicated another way, but from a maybe face value standpoint, a game like Street Fighter is more simple, but I wouldn't mind a more simple Guilty Gear as long as it plays well. You know, I was talking with a friend after we both played this game, and I'm like, dude, I think this game is worse than Street Fighter V when I first played it. And his knee-jerk reaction, he gave me a weird look. He's like, dude, no. He's like, no. He's like, Street Fighter V was way worse. He's like, Street Fighter V has been getting better as it goes on. And I'm like, dude, think about when we first played Street Fighter V. Are you seriously telling me Street Fighter V was worse than this game? I think it was better. And then he kind of like thought about it. He's like, actually, you know what? He's like, actually, you know, okay, maybe you're right, actually. And he's like, this game doesn't actually feel that good to play right now. And I'm like, and he's like, because he's like, Street Fighter V is like, at least it was still kind of he's like, Street Fighter, even if it sucks, it still feels good to play. It doesn't necessarily feel janky, but this game feels kind of janky, dude. Like, I mean, look at the game. The game looks good, but when you play it, you know what I mean? When you see shit like the way the guys get hit, when you're comboing, like the hitboxes in the game, You know, you look at stuff like this, like, okay, here's my hard slash. We would think, oh, it's like, ah, shit. It's like, you would expect this move to have a little bit more range. Yeah, it's like, certain things don't feel good in this game, and it feels very pre-contrived, and every move feels like it has too specific of a purpose, right? Like, oh, sorry. Oh, what am I doing? Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? It's just like, it feels like a little slow. It's like, well, it's your jabs are your fast button. It's like, yeah, this is my fast button. I get it. And like, this is so slow, it doesn't count. But, you know, then I get that. It's like, this is so pre-contrived. But then you get into stuff like, okay, well, here's my far slash. And it's like, it's not like Kai before we do far slash, then you can do duck slash if you're trying to, you know, there's more of a free flow to the game. It's like, no, this is the move. And then it's like, oh shit, well, that isn't a real combo. And you're like, oh, but wait a second, you could do, oh, so that's your conversion. And then you run in, where how much damage I showed it gets. But then you're like, but what about when you're actually playing footsies in the corner, right? You're spacing, you know what I mean, blah, blah, whatever, trying to, the footsies of the game, the range of the game, it feels a little off. And it's like, okay, well, then I can't get, you know, well, I guess I got it there, but, you know, actual spacing, the actual max tip, just the tip of the mushroom tip, right? And you're like, oh, but then it breaks the wall. And it's like, oh, well, fuck, this is such a, quotation marks, fundamental game, but now I'm hurt for actually trying. It's like, well, Clayton, you know the RRCs, you could drift in. And it's like, yeah, I could drift in and I get a smidge more damage, but it's like, dude, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like, this is not very fun. We're not even getting, you know, it's just, it's shot like, oh, the game feels just so pre-contrived, and it's just, and it's actually a dulled down version of the last beta. So, you know what I mean? Because you had instances like, oh, okay, I could see him, you know, oh God, people use this word, shimmying, whatever, you know what I mean? But, oh, you're in back and forth, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then you boom. And then you would link off it in the last, and it's like, oh, that doesn't even work in this version of the game. There's no ShakyKessen in this game, which is actually on the fucking site that it's in there, which I made a video about. I'm like, wow, they actually showed that they purposely put ShakyKessen back in the game. And it was even easier, right? Which, it was kind of, well, I'm like, okay, well, the game is more of a fundamental game. It gives a little bit of a free flow. Now it's not even in the game. And then you look at shit like this, like, where is this? Let me set him to guard, right? So we do like a fireball at half screen. Jesus Christ, he recovers from a fireball at half screen? Like, you know, and some of this shit, I would assume that the game is going to get a polish. I think some stuff feels too rough. Like I said, I'm very surprised that Kai was actually toned down in some ways in this. It's like, you actually took away shit. Some of the wall shit was actually taken away, so you can't do as much shit. At least give it a theoretical more of a mix. I just don't think the game feels very good right now. Which is weird because, again, I don't mind a game being simpler. I'm like, it doesn't bother me. All these motherfuckers at the beginning of the game, they're like, oh, we just hate the user interface, but oh man, you know, this is going to be the most fundamental video game ever, the most risky game to air block ever. It's the most honest Guilty Gear. It's like, this game is not going to turn out this. You motherfuckers are just complaining about the user interface. Look at the fucking game you're talking about. And what happened? It's actually kind of comical, dude. Now you got people in my comments that I've had to block because they're just spamming my channel. No one ever said jumping was going to be risky in this game. You're making that up. It's like, who the fuck was I responding to in all these videos? I was responding to all these people in the community that you think actually know what the fuck they're talking about. And no, they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. It's right in their fucking face. You know what I mean? About how this game was going to work, right? So, would I play the game as it is? No, honestly, I wouldn't, which is, again, kind of sad because I actually thought I might humor the game. And I'm like, oh, I'll humor the game, but I'm like, it's just too pre-contrived. You know, people are complaining about gattlings and stuff like that. I don't necessarily mind that there's not really any gattlings between slash and hard slash. But man, add a little bit more links, right? Instead of just... well, I fucking missed it, but I fucking missed it again. You know what I mean? But add a little bit more links, you know what I mean? Like, add at least maybe a jab to a slash link, something like that, you know? the game is just, it's a little too pre-contrived, and I've made a video that talks about the potential complexity in redundancy. And that's why I say people say that Street Fighter 2 is such a simple game and there's redundant normals, but if you actually play a game like Street Fighter 2, you will see even these normals that look redundant just being a little bit different, a character looking like, oh, all these moves are anti-air moves, but you know what? When you actually play the game, just little intricacies, or whatever that English word is, in hitboxes and stuff like that can play such a drastic role, and it makes something that looks redundant on surface value actually complex. And this is a game that, it's like, oh, this is your move this is the move this is your move that does this is your move that does this. It's like, oh, well, fuck, what is there to find? This game is a year and a half old now from a certain perspective. I'm not impressed with this kind of shit, these kind of combos, whatever it might be. This was a year and a half old. All these old RC systems, people's like, oh, it's brand new. We've already known how the game worked a year and a half ago. There's very strange. So if you already know how the game works a year and a half ago, sorry, dude, I'm always fucking sick, man. Sick people shit. If you already know how the game works a year and a half ago, you better hope that the game is fundamentally sound. And the game has a lot of fundamental flaws, and it feels a little awkward to play right now. When you hit people, it doesn't feel good. I don't think it's the counter hit stuff. I think the game just feels kind of janky. I don't mind shit like this. People are like, oh, look at these crazy combos. Who would have thought of that shit? What are you talking about? That shit is obvious. You never thought that's crazy to you? You don't think shit was going to be like it? I mean, if the developers didn't know that shit was in the game, what the fuck were you doing for the past year and a half? That just seems obvious. I did that fucking first try. What are you talking about? I mean, it's pretty obvious that kind of shit would be in the game. Of course people want to work people to mid-screen so they can do these kind of infinites. You don't have Tekken, well, no fucking shit. Right? I mean, but this is, you put all your eggs in one basket. This is how you want the game to be. It's brain dead shit, and it's a year and a fucking half old. So anyway, Gatlings are not necessarily bad that they're all out, but it doesn't feel like there's enough stuff to actually compensate for it not being there. And the game just doesn't, I don't think the game actually feels that good to play right now. But like I said, I would expect the game to be better in a month. I mean, this kind of shit is stupid. I mean, oh wait, what am I doing? I'm trying to think. What am I trying to do? A super. I can't even fucking super. I just woke up. Sorry, but super. How do you super? Yeah, whatever. The super when they're of the fucking dust, whatever the fuck it is, dude. I'm DPing, but forgot what I was doing. But the dust mechanic, it looks fucking weird. The game just doesn't feel good. It's very janky feeling. The game feels unfinished, but it's a year and a half, and it's like, I don't know. It almost makes me think, did you purposely put out a shitty version of this is the finished product or whatever?
Danger.
It's better. I don't know, dude. I'll humor. How about this? I'll say this too. I'm so unimpressed with this version of the game. If the world was more opened up without COVID, I would have canceled my pre-order, actually. But because of COVID, I guess there's not much else to do. But yeah, I would say this game is so unimpressive as it is that I actually would have canceled my pre-order as it is. I'm so unimpressed with the game, actually, which is kind of weird, right? But I do expect the game to be better. And I'm sure there's going to be some hater that is going to try to take what I said as something else. But it's sad because, like I said, I think there's interesting things in this game. I think the shock state is interesting. I think a lot of characters, I think Soul doing this shit with dash canceling. I think, Soul having dash cancel, I think that stuff is interesting. The characters, they have new flavors. Chip with the way he works. I think these characters are kind of fun interventions or fun kind of re-envisions of the characters, but you know, again, when I talked about how I feel like old Guilty Gear games as kind of the characters were showing off the system. Now the characters have to cater to the system. You know, my friend used the word catering when we were discussing this, and I kind of like the word catering. I need to use that word more. So before, the characters were showing off the game, right? You know what I mean? The characters were a little bit more important than the system. But now really the system is more important, which is kind of strange because the characters actually have some new interesting stuff, but they're so kind of, you know, they're kind of a little bit too pre-planned, predetermined. And it's sad because I feel like every character does feel pretty unique, which is good. But they're catering to the system too much. They're relying on the system to, you know, feel special. You know, I mean, and, you know, and this shit is a year and a half old, and like I said, I would not be surprised if this shit kind of comes back. I mean, Jesus Christ, if they really took that shit out because I showed that was possible in the first beta, that's fucking pathetic, right? Because that's actually fun, you know. Oh, back and forth, oh, then I'm gonna throw you, or oh, I'm not even gonna wait for it to freeze, or oh, this time I go, whoa, you're frozen, and I get a jab. It's like, that's kind of free-flowing, and it's like they've already toned down the system a little bit, or maybe just the characters. It just is, what's going on? Like, very strange. So hopefully it's a little bit more free-flowing, a little bit less pre-contrived, because there are good things about the game, but the game isn't that fun to play right now. It's surprisingly unfun to play. Like I said, I actually told my friend, I think Street Fighter V was more fun to play this. And you know, he knee-jerk reaction. He's like, what the fuck? He's like, no, you're fucking crazy. He's like, this is better than Street Fighter V. And I'm like, time out. Think about when we first played Street Fighter V and think about when we played this. And then he's like, actually, you're right. Huh. He's like, I just remember that Street Fighter V, you know, he's one of those guys that thinks Street Fighter V is more fun now. So he's like, yeah, I guess you're right, actually. He's like, this game doesn't actually feel that good to play. And he's like, yeah, huh. I'm like, nah, it doesn't. Anyway, fuck my titties.